What is going on, you guys? It's your boy, the terrible technocrat here, and we're back with episode 43 of the video game therapy series. It's an otherwise insignificant number. There's not too many important things related to the number 43. But I guess to everyone has their own numbers to which they assign some kind of arbitrary value, right? I think, 23 wasn't really famous until, Michael Jordan, and I'm sure all aspiring athletes and the like have their own numbers that they want to bring to fame. I suppose with my channel, you could make the observation that my number is 30 that is important to me. And it was before Steph Curry, so before you say that, it was Rusty Buckets 30 before Steph Curry 30, actually. So just keep that in mind. But anyway, everyone's got their own numbers that they find important for whatever reasons. Others are more popular than others. I'd be curious to see what, I'm sure someone's done this, but a distribution of whether it's like jersey numbers or favorite numbers or special numbers. Like if you asked a group of people or a bunch of people one number that they found was important, what would the distribution be amongst like 1 through 50 or 1 through 100 even? Because I think people even, there's random numbers like 86 or something, I'm sure is important to somebody somewhere. So anyway, still 43, an otherwise not super important number, but maybe I'm missing a reference or something somewhere. I forgot whatever the reference was for The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. I've never even seen the movie, but I remember there was like the answer to the universe was like, I don't know if it was 43. I don't know what it was. Either way, doesn't matter. Today I want to talk about nature, and it kind of means a lot of different things to a lot of different people. I guess some people just think of it as like, oh, I go to a national park and I hike around for a couple hours, that's nature. Some people think of it as like, kind of, an antithesis to technology or something. Or, even just like primitive man. Primitive man is to nature as we are to technology. And in some ways it's, we, at least through our actions, feel this need to like dominate nature, right? To establish that humans specifically are, more powerful, and we can, impose our will on nature as we want because we're smart or something. But it often, if there's one thing that nature is, it is wholly indifferent to our existence, even to a fault. No amount of our preparation, at least on current scientific capabilities, we're able to stop, a hurricane or some other, nature really coming after us. And that's not, again, it's not because nature was, had any malintent. It's just, it doesn't care, right? And I think a quote that I really like around it, I forgot exactly where this comes from, but it is the, if we were to have a rainforest, and you would say, you look at the rainforest and say, oh, it's, a natural rainforest. But if we were to cut all the trees down and it left us with the desert is no less natural than the rainforest, so to speak. And that's not a case for, deforestation. That's more so a case for nature does not care. Same with, it's just as natural for, somebody to enjoy and hike out there than it is for a grizzly bear to eat the hiker that's hiking out there, so it's, people think that there's some, nature's always looking out for us. The opinions around nature are weird, especially when you kind of mix, people who are these granola people that, swear that, it's all in nature, whatever. Of course, then, hopefully they're not the ones getting eaten by grizzly bears, but it's possible, right? So I don't know. It's just kind of a strange relationship that we have with nature, and we feel our need to dominate it, but we really can't to some extent. We can predict like the weather sometimes. But beyond that, we're not really doing a great job at controlling or harnessing hurricanes for anything. But I guess solar power and hydropower are examples of which we've kind of harnessed some of it. But again, that's also just, even electricity is an example of how we're harnessing nature. I suppose if you get really metaphysical with it, you can kind of go forever. But we are beholden to nature's indifference and the laws, quote unquote, that nature imposes on us. So we can only really understand them better to then use them for our benefit, right? So again, we can't really, to a modest extent, if we I suppose we can. If we tried to redirect water flow or something, the water is still going to flow. We just have to, if we're able to redirect it in a way that helps us produce energy or something, I don't know. We're not really, we have to abide by the laws of nature. We're not breaking them by doing that. But the direction is no less natural that the water's flowing now than it was. But we only really use it to better exploit it for our benefit. So, same with, the rats and weeds and things that find their way into our cities. Again, they're no less natural than the rainforest or the city that was there before, but it is wholly indifferent to our existence as humans, which some find, beautiful, others find terrifying. I suppose there's arguments for both of those because do you kind of view it as it doesn't look at the waterfall, it doesn't care, versus the grizzly bear kind of eating the hiker example. It doesn't care. So I don't know. It can be peaceful and scary, and I guess there's just a lot of dichotomy there, and everyone can kind of draw these metaphors with nature, and helps them, I don't know, gives them stuff to talk about when they're high. I don't know. It's just an interesting thought that we just want so badly to dominate it in every way, but in a lot of ways it's kind of the ultimate state of things. And I guess that's a better way to define nature, is just kind of the state of things, and in a way that we try to we have to abide by. We don't violate laws of nature, but we try to use them for our advantage, and whatever that looks like. Whether that be trying to harness solar energy for something, there's a lot of different ways in which we utilize, I guess, nature for our benefit. But even so, it's still, nature is nature. So I don't know. It's interesting. The grizzly bear and the hiker example is the funniest to me, just because it seems, this was not funny that somebody's getting eaten by a grizzly bear, but it's showing of nature's greater indifference. Is that, while the hiker would be, the granola guy who would do everything to defend nature and all of its perils, it is also the one that'll be swallowed by that, So, anyway, it's interesting. So, I suppose this kind of maybe goes along with that nature theme, but takes it maybe a different direction. Again, of course, it's more of a cynical direction, because that's just tends to be the way my thoughts go about these things. So it's sorry. But there's a lot that and again, this is going to be kind of an opinion piece. So it's not like I can, in some ways it's difficult to abstract this into a way that everyone can understand or agrees with. So I understand that I'm kind of going off on a limb here and not staying true to my very, very abstract and ubiquitous roots with this. But I personally don't find a lot of fulfillment in the way that I suppose modern work is designed. And I guess work is just a greater symptom of a modern technological system. And it's not to say that I don't enjoy technology. Obviously, I'm indulging in it right now, but I think there's a good argument to be made that it impedes a lot of our evolutionarily driven desires. Because I think some people tend to I guess it's kind of selfish, or I don't know, conceited to think that just because we have language and we created governments, so we've landed people on the moon, that all of a sudden we're not monkeys, Because I suppose if you go in the evolutionary timeline, if we view us as a biological species, that again is whose main goal, like any biological species, is to reproduce and multiply. And again, of course, we've abstracted our own meanings into these different things, but we are very much still like monkeys, in the sense that we have very primitive desires, right? We have the desires to reproduce and desires to eat. I mean, even just take a look at advertising. Advertising is preying on our very monkey-like desires to have sex and eat. That's kind of what advertising is. Sex sells, those big juicy burger sells. Like, is that, and to think that just because we have language or something and schools and all this philosophy, we're still monkeys that enjoy eating and reproducing. And, with that kind of brings into question a lot of the way we've structured a lot of modern life and the indulgences that we get, and whether or not those really mesh like properly with, I guess, our, the fact that we're monkeys. So first, I suppose it's worth establishing that I think it is conceited as humans to think that we're, again, not that we're better than other species, but that we're not a species, right? That we're some omnipotent, ever quickly evolving or super exister that is not beholden to the same things that other animals are, because we are other animals. We're not even the strongest ones. Like, again, grizzly bears can rip us apart. We're the smartest ones, so I guess that we get points there, but that's not everything, right? I think we still have a lot that we're deficient in as a species, right? We could have 360 vision, but we don't. We only have 2 eyes, and they go forward, so we can't really see anything behind us. But either way, and not speaking about the biological limitations of humans as if it were some video game design, but speaking them as what they are in terms of an evolutionary timeline, I think is interesting. So that brings me back to this like idea of nature and technology, and I think this has been something that has, my opinion of which has been evolving, and it hasn't been sudden. It wasn't like I just woke up one day and all of a sudden decided that modern technology is bad. I've been critical of technology for months now, if not years, but I kind of grow more and more wary of its effects and how ill adapted we are as humans to use it in its modern forms, right? Because again, if you view us in the long-term way of things, even you look 300 years ago or something, 500 years ago, 2,000 years ago, whatever, we're living in these small villages. We are, we're hunting whatever we can get our hands on. We're, again, what are our main goals there? It's eating and reproducing. And all of a sudden, now that we've kind of, in just like the blink of an eye, historically, we've created these huge monstrosities of, institutions. We still, but it's foolish to think we're no longer beholden to these eating and reproducing as like kind of our basic drives. And I think any biologist kind of would tell you that, but they don't often consider it in a sociological lens. They kind of separate, oh, well, that's just our biology, right? That's not our sociology, right? But to think that they don't have an impact on our, even what we think about or what we do is stupid. Because even people that, the biologists will tell you that the human body cannot just differentiate between mental and physical stressors very well. So, I mean, if you're, I don't know, whatever thing, psychological torture or something, your body still is going to recover in that in the same way it would like a max deadlift or something, where it's not, they're not, there's no separations of concerns with those two things. And so in that same way, we can't just assume that, oh, well, our institutions we've created and sociology as a whole are separate from our biological, monkey brain. Really? So then why do we have advertising as a field? Is literally the institutions we've created, businesses, companies, what have you, utilizing our biological desires to get people to exchange things for one another, right? In this case, it's like buy something with your money because we're trying to make you horny to buy this thing, which again, I guess I'm kind of critiquing that a little bit, but at the same time, it's like we can't ignore that. That is a fact. We can't act like marketing is some, or advertising is some separate thing. And I'm not just picking on advertising here. I'm thinking institutionally as a whole, there are, we still ignore everywhere that we are, again, driven by biological impulses. And so when I think about even society and technology that we've created, I then kind of think about how it either assists or, deprecates our ability to perform biological functions. Not just saying like, yeah, technically it is easier to just DoorDash food than it would be to go hunt, right? So it's like, oh, we've made progress. Like, clap, 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 clap. That's great. But surely there's some psychological backing behind, or even just history behind us hunting for food, reproducing, and we even see that with people find pretty much, if not all, but most of their value through like their kids, and that historically makes a lot of sense because that was success in the village 500 years ago. That was success to our oldest ancestors, and that is still success today, right? Same with eating food. To now it's a point where you eat so much food you wouldn't have to eat for years before you'd actually need food again. But I think my argument is that there might be technology that disrupts and ignores our history. So while yes, it is more like institutionally, economically efficient for me to just DoorDash food every day, which I've never actually used DoorDash. I'm just using it as an example because I know that's what people do. Sorry, I just need to separate myself from the tech here. It's not like I'm a DoorDash addict or something. It would be more efficient, institutionally for us to just order food every day and not have to worry about like the hunt. And I think people think that is like innately good, but what even economics tells us that there's, what's the opportunity cost of that, right? Surely it's not a zero. It is kind of a zero sum thing, right? And I think if we're pulling away from satisfaction that we'd get from hunting our food and finding it in other places, then we have to justify that. And I suppose one argument I'm making is it is like what I'm replacing, the hunt with, back in the old village days, where, you'd obviously get a lot of, that was kind of success was that, you found a big deer or something and you were contributing well to the village and everyone's happy and you were in part of a small community. Now I'm replacing that with, being an engineer at Google, and if you can find value in that and you are, able to, and I'll use, again, delusions kind of here loosely, to delude yourself into thinking that is what, that is historically, evolutionarily, and sociologically equivalent to the successful hunt, as it were, in the village days, then good on you. But I have trouble equating those things, and I have trouble getting the same fulfillment out of what I would consider otherwise abstracted tasks, right? So I think you getting a job at Google is so far abstracted from what that the equivalent production would be in a village society or agrarian society that it is almost useless. You'd almost rather have done nothing. And I think a lot of people, their jobs literally are to do nothing. But even if you have an arguably useful job, it's still so unbelievably far abstracted from, I think, evolutionarily where our bodies want to be. So part of why I'm even talking about this, because I think it's it might be an explanation for a lot of the mental health crises and this like this social crisis that a lot of people are feeling like, they have no sense of community with the internet anymore. And I started using the village example to myself, thinking about, okay, when was maybe a time that this wasn't, that wasn't a thing. And now there are still kooks back in the days where we would hunt and gather, but I mean, I don't even know what those people probably just, now they commit suicide, but they were, taken care of in other ways, so to speak. But, and not saying that's either good or bad, but either way, if we're talking about outliers are still outliers at the end of the day. But even just normal folk, that was not something that plagued them, right? Whereas today it's like it's a crisis that everyone is sad and depressed and have all these problems and have no friends or something. And whatever statistic it was that it's like 60% of people, young men, are like not having sex, which again, you can make the argument about, dating apps all day, but that number was not anywhere near that in those village days. I mean, whether you liked it or not, you were getting matched with somebody and you're going to have to reproduce because the village needed those hands to work. Say the farms needed those hands to work. I'm not saying that was better, that we, force people to get married and whatnot. I'd say there's a lot of nice things that come with having choice. But to think there was no trade-off, to think it was all just like a positive game where it's like, oh, we just win. We win with technology. We win. I'm kind of sensing more and more just in my own observation that it's more of a zero-sum game than we might want to believe. In the sense that, as we centralize and look to technology to solve increasingly to solve all of our problems, we have to exchange something, and we're now looking for it to solve, these complex social problems that didn't exist before. It's not like we're solving, we are solving new problems in a lot of ways, but we're also creating new problems. So again, I'm kind of making the argument it's more of a zero-sum game than we might want to believe. Now, I'm obviously not going to be someone that swears off technology and just lives in a bunker or something, because, that's equally kind of stupid. And you have to be somewhat practical, and you can't just use abstract thought to guide everything. But there, even for things like, kind of fixing a social, fixing your social well-being, there's an argument to be made that the closer you can get to, being like you were in a village, the better, right? Which is why, that's why it pisses me off that companies peddle these communities, right? Oh, you can join the Zoom community. Like, you think I'm going to base my identity around fucking Zoom, or like find any sense of community with Zoom? Like, fuck you. Like, it's insulting that you think that your stupid online product is going to be something that is going to, Zoom, if of all things, it is going to bring me a sense of community. At least make it Minecraft. That's at least more appealing than anything. But I think especially companies that just want to peddle communities because it's a word that people are desperate for and people will fall for, that it's predatory. But, I even think trying to find a community around something like Minecraft isn't that much of an improvement over something as stupid as Zoom, right? Zoom having like, oh, hang out with friends on these, random Zoom call. Like, I don't even know if that exists. I'm just making it up. But, I assume that there are a fair number of companies that are peddling community-based or community-driven products that could not be farther away from actually creating or serving communities of any kind. So I don't know. I don't think the solution to that is an app. As unfortunate as that might be to technocrats everywhere and people that preach that kind of abstraction and progress. And so I really think the abstraction from what allowed us to succeed historically is one of the more central points of my kind of diatribe here. I think that the work today is, whatever that is. Again, if you're a salesman, you're a engineer, is so far abstracted from what with what our evolutionary success was and what our success was even just a couple hundred years ago, that it's kind of messing with us. And I think we're asking a lot of humans to just adapt, oh, let it be the new normal. Like, tell your body just to, find all your meaning and work through, being an engineer instead of instead of the hunt. And I guess I've just found more catharsis even internally, just thinking about life in a village, right? It kind of seems, it seems simple. There's, obviously a lot you don't have. I don't have Minecraft in the village, but, you don't see half the men not reproducing in a village, or you don't see, people forming a coup for some strange niche political thing. And I don't know, maybe it's just because I'm so plugged out of a lot of politics that if you think about it in the eyes of our evolutionarily man, all this stuff seems silly. If you took a real Native American out of his tribe and asked him what he thought of, the Ben and Jerry's ice cream controversy, one, he wouldn't know your language, but two, he would surely have some very articulate way or some way about or some quote or phrase to tell you how stupid you were without saying it, right? He'd talk about the deer and whatever. Basically, a big way of saying that you're an idiot. Why are you worried about this? And so I don't know. I see as we move farther away from, as we stray from God's grace, as we move farther and farther away from, I guess, our evolutionarily driven ideas, which are very much still present, right? I think people that say that, we can adapt, we'll adapt when sex stops selling, which it won't, because, again, deep down we're still monkeys. So to think that sex will stop selling because we've adapted to these, no. If anything, we'll just kind of further prey upon our evolutionarily, our evolved traits and what made us successful as an animal, to then, to create more institutions and things that are, I don't even know what the real point of it, a lot of it is. Because I don't think, more and more people are not finding meaning through their, I don't know who ever found meaning in doing some of these dumb stuff that, are being asked of workers today, but especially now, I don't know how you even justify that it's worthwhile. If you spend more than a half second thinking about it. But I suppose, the solution would just be to get lost and, to kind of lose yourself in it all, right? I think if if somebody dangled a carrot right in front of me and, had me never think twice about, anything else, maybe I'd just be chasing carrots all day. Of course, I'd like to tell you that I'm above that, and I would, I'd never do that. I'm always going to be questioning and thinking, but, ultimately that can't be said for a lot of people, even myself, if I wasn't, because that's even why I'm glad, I think, that I've kind of put off trying to be materially successful as much as I can, in the sense that I have, it's not that, I'm a super high value individual. I just think I easily could have made more money in doing my things. I could have been more, I guess, systemically dependent. I could have try to get his, super hotshot job, and I could have really put in a lot more effort to do that. And, because even, if I had succeeded, I would have achieved, a lot of this material success. And perhaps I would have just forgotten about all of this. And it wouldn't have been important because I'm making money. I'm an adult. I got all my, and maybe that was the point. That's maybe what I was supposed to do, right? Instead of, trying to delay a lot of that and in exchange for freedom as I see it. That's kind of what I was worried I would lose, and I'm still kind of battling that. How much liberty do I lose when I buy into something like that? So when I take a job that is doing this, and I have to, I got to market, I don't even know what even people sell these days. I got to sell these Zoom licenses, right? You can sell, if you sell 40, you can get an extra $2,000 or something. And then I'd be so caught up in all the minutia of, selling more and strategies for this. And I'd kind of get lost in this whole idea of, ooh, I gotta be the best salesman I can be, prove myself, and I would just kind of forget about anything beyond like what somebody has told me to care about. And instead, I've kind of chosen a temporary path where I'm kind of letting myself kind of really explore what I do think is important at its core, which I'm finding more and more is not pushing those Zoom licenses. Not that I would ever be a salesman for Zoom. I mean, but as an example of some bureaucratic position doing something that is, important, quote unquote, in some sense of the word. But the ultimate reality is if I'm not selling some Zoom licenses, somebody else is. And it's unfortunate that that point doesn't get brought up more often. It's like, oh, you're so valuable and crucial. If they wouldn't design a society as a enormous, dependent village in a way that one person could ruin it all. So like, if any one person from our, social structure is missing, the whole thing doesn't fall crumbling down. And that's by design, such that it will, it can weather storms, and we can still have functioning government and schools and roads and things if, somebody croaks over and dies or gets struck by lightning or something. So, I love to preach about how individuality is so, imperative to modern life. It truly isn't. I think individuality was only really, even ever since agrarian society, it was never really that important because, again, we were dependent on one another, even in early village days. That was only really, critically important in days when it was even just like single-celled houses and families, which I'm not sure how far you'd have to go back before that was the norm. But and that's for the preservation of the species in a lot of ways, right? If the one baker who stops baking bread and dies, and everybody dies because bread is the only food they eat, that'd be pretty stupid to have it set up that way, because again, it's kind of a centralized point of failure, which I guess is one case for keeping things decentralized in some ways, because the central point of failure is no bueno in anything. You don't want a central point of failure. You want a distributed. So you don't want to have one mega farm. You want to have a bunch of farms that can all, and again, centralization at junctures sometimes makes sense, although can be problematic because it's, tied to power, and power corrupts, and absolute power corrupts absolutely. So it's not like you'd want everything to be centralized. There's problems with that, but ultimately there's more power in centralization. So I suppose it's a trade-off. If that wasn't already an obvious conclusion, but anyway. So yeah, and I think one very clear and obvious argument, I suppose, against what I'm talking about is that we'd see less progress, right? We'd see less, advancement. We'd die from disease and all this other stuff. And I guess specifically about disease, it's kind of one thing that I think is brought up about. Like in agrarian society, disease wasn't really as prevalent, only because it wasn't as transmittable, right? If you're around fewer people and there's only there's not so much room for cross-contamination as there would be today, then it wouldn't have mattered. So like, I suppose if you use the coronavirus as an example, if we were still, in, distributed agrarian societies where, you basically didn't leave a 50-mile radius your entire life, coronavirus would have just wiped out, one small part, unless some donkey got it and brought it over or something like that. But, among one species, its disease was not very prevalent. And the other part about this, which is more frustrating to me, is that, yes, people would die from preventable diseases that we've, created technology to stop today. But we have now kind of created our own, not diseases that didn't exist, but we make ourselves ill. Like, I mean, I don't know if it's the number one disease. Diabetes is a largely preventable disease, at least type 2 diabetes. But we give that to ourselves. It's not like, there's some fly running around giving everyone diabetes. There's there's clear ways we do that, but unfortunately it's not even that we lack technology. We lack self-control even. That's not, I guess some people might look at it as a technology problem. I don't look at that as a technology problem. Like the obesity epidemic is not we lack the technology to make, I don't know, Reese's low calorie or something. I think we lack, I'm not even sure what that is. Do we lack intelligence? That's supposed to be our strong suit, right? Aren't we the smartest species? But, if we aren't even intelligent enough to avoid what's avoidable, then, I don't know. It's an interesting, thought. And I suppose that wasn't prevalent to the extent it is a while ago. So then, people are dying from that instead of a technologically preventable disease that we've found a cure for. So I don't know. There is some give and take with a lot of that. Disease being kind of not really the strongest argument for, I guess, this rapid progression of technology. So we'd also lose a lot of ubiquitous access to things that we take for granted now. So communication at the speed that we do. Obviously the internet would probably not exist if we had stayed agrarian. And people, I'm not going to be full doomer and say that the internet was a mistake because I like the internet. I think it's cool. But you'd be stupid also to say that it has only come with positives. So like I said, it looks more and more like it's a zero-sum game. It is not we win because we move forward. I think every time we move forward, especially without thinking of anything else, we sacrifice something else later on. So while we prevent a bunch of, diseases that, plagued the humans for centuries, everyone gets diabetes now. So it's like, okay, well, again, it's not even a technology problem. I guess it kind of is, but I promise you when the thing comes around, it'll be, become an economic problem because no one can afford the, treatment. So, again, it's more zero sum than I would like. And I think most others would like. And I'm kind of making an argument that progress for progress's sake isn't always fruitful, only because it is more zero sum. And if things that are zero sum, it doesn't really make sense to be moving forward all the time. So I don't know, I suppose, the technology serves as a good boogeyman for people that, are, the problems come up, but it also is the saving grace for people that, are looking to solutions. It's always technology, right? It's not, you don't often solve a problem by I don't even know, you'd solve a problem by going backwards in time, right? I suppose, again, that also might, but I think you'd have problems both either way, right? It's like damned if you do, damned if you don't. It wouldn't matter whether we'd be living in, small villages with no internet, but, we'd have different problems, right? So it's different sides of the same coin. So I don't know. And I suppose it's very hard to compare. And I think this is really an overarching problem, I think, with a lot of the arguments is that very, very advanced, like we say, it's better now than it has ever been. But I think a lot of that is all relative, right? I think that's been said for millennia, but I think humans do have a psychological ability to adapt to circumstances. And I made the example, this is a long time ago, but I talked about a Holocaust survivor and they're the ins and outs of their daily life, in concentration camps with, how billionaires feel when they buy a new yacht or they buy whatever. And the real difference is dopaminergically, I guess, your brain wise, two are in a similar spot, once they've acclimated. Really, I think, maybe the billionaire gets, got that initial kick once they hit that billion mark, but, the same Holocaust survivor kind of gets to a new normal once they've, been there for a while. So it's the difference between them is not this night and day difference that we seem to think. We think that, people back in 50 years ago, their life must have sucked, right? They didn't have any internet porn. They didn't have M&Ms. Maybe they had M&Ms. I don't know. But it's you really think that it again, think about it this way. People are barely holding on. They have all these mental health problems and they're they're suicidal. You think it was that much better? You think then how would they have even lived? They all would have just off themselves immediately. So I don't really take the argument with I take it with a lot of salt. in the case that, we were always better than we were, because if it has always been getting better going forward, that means it has always been getting worse if you go back, meaning that several thousand years ago, people must have just hated everything. Everything must have been absolutely brutal. How could anyone do anything? Why would, the thing is that it's relative, right? I think, again, just like, the person in the concentration camp versus the billionaire, it's all relative, right? And I think if you start from this, it obviously sounds like it would suck if you move backwards, but again, once you acclimate, then you go to a new normal. So I don't know. I think just because we've, we're no longer ignorant of technologies that exist, we don't have the bliss that we could have had we been ignorant. So I know there's an argument to be had about that. So I don't know. I just think it's an interesting thought. Not that I'm an anti-technology. We should burn all of our computers and stuff. I'm obviously very invested in technology. I have lots of interest in it. I think it's great. I just think it's also worth kind of thinking about its implications societally and philosophically, and how it has impacted us. And in a lot of ways, I just view it as a more zero-sum game than many people believe. So I don't know. It's an interesting thought. But anyway, let me think more about, I guess I'll think more about that later. But so here's something that I want to touch on a little bit. People, I say people, really. This is just, I don't know, one of my alter egos that talks sometimes, or just people have said something or I've seen it somewhere. Delayed gratification is like a big, buzzword, and you should be, working to delay gratification every possible juncture. And so I guess my overarching question is there's a balance between, instant gratification and delayed gratification that is good. And, you can, 80-20 or 50-50 or 60-40. I could make up some random percentage and, we could be done with it. But just thinking about cases for, or things that, what does delayed gratification look like, and what does instant gratification look like? I think everyone kind of knows what instant gratification looks like. You're just kind of, I guess you're just kind of whatever the wind blows you, you're going to do kind of mentality. But delayed gratification, I think, takes, many forms. And one thing I think are particularly good examples of delayed gratification are like investments into health, and this is like real health. This isn't like doing steroids. Is obviously the instant gratification version of regularly going to the gym again, having a good diet and all this other stuff. Same with like skills are in a lot of ways delayed gratifications, because while it is easier, I'll just hire somebody to do this, or I can just pay somebody or use AI to do it or something. Those aren't like replacements for skills themselves. Those are, again, the instant gratification versions of the long form being, okay, you kind of bang your head against it for a while. You, kind of learn through the ups and downs, and you eventually come on the other side. There's, that kind of bell curve where it kind of pays off at some point. And, obviously there's different mathematical representations for how that payoff comes. Sometimes it's ultimately a very little reward, depending on how stupid the skill is. But sometimes the payoff can be, monumental. I suppose if we're going to make, technology jokes here, like learning Vim or Emacs or something would be like the skill that everyone, can point at and laugh at or bash on, or however you want to think about it. But, I think if you first got started and you tried to, edit text or you write your code in Vim or something, you'd be pissed because it'd be like, this is unbelievably slow. I could write faster code in, Microsoft Word. But again, it's the whole, like, it'll pay off in a couple of years. All of a sudden you'll be flying through bash scripts and whatnot. But, one thing I want to, I guess the last thing in terms of like good investments and good delayed gratifications are investments in people are often forgotten. I think like investing in friendships and close relationships are are forms of delayed gratification in my view. Only because a lot of times people view, I guess, one-off events or interactions with people and relationships as, well, this is not good for me right now. This is like, this person's a shithead, or there's some very, very short-term view of what this person's function is. And they're looked at through a short temporal lens. Not to say that you should just be friends with people who are going to give you, I don't know, be, even economically worthwhile or something in the long term. That's just as dumb as anything else. Economics is a whole nother, I guess the financial side of this is a whole nother argument to be had. But the way I even think about it is like sacrificing, work time or, I don't know, some other time to actively socialize, even though like you are kind of, in some ways feels like instant gratification because you're avoiding this work or you're avoiding this. But again, I kind of been clear about this before. Whatever you're doing for work, I'm not going to say probably, it will be forgotten. It will be forgotten, it'll be forgotten by you. It'll be forgotten by your boss. It'll be forgotten by whatever company you do quicker than the relationship between you and this hypothetical person will have been forgotten. Theoretically, relationships can outlast any kind of, unless even the people who wrote the code that sent people to the moon, I don't even know who wrote that. Ada Lovelace. I mean, again, it's forgotten, right? So the work is not important. I think investing in relationships is something that's forgotten, but is just as valuable as investing in something like a skill or something like or your health and fitness. So there's just a longer term payout with investing in people that are good or high quality and have your back, and I guess not that they have something to offer you, but have something to offer in any way, sense of the word, and that could be just be intellectual stimulation, right? People that are smart and can challenge you or have different viewpoints, like that's value there. The part that I think is the one the reason I wrote this down to begin with was people take the same view on like money, right? So the instant gratification version of money is, you just spend it. You just take it and spend it, whatever. And the long-term view is, you store it away in some, high-yield savings or bonds, or you I don't know, pay some jackass to do it on Robinhood instead of learning it yourself. Or that whole thing is, if you're investing in Robinhood, you're a moron. I don't care if you made money, you're still a moron. But that often tends to be the things that people take this. They always take these 100-year looks at their financial investments, and spoiler alert, very few people even live to be 100, and obviously that results in a lot of wealth accumulation by certain peoples and families and certain things, but it also just kind of clouds what the point of the money is, and I guess the point of money in general is to wield some sort of power or influence over something. So it's a I guess it's a accreditation for some kind of quote unquote work or some kind of quote unquote contribution you've made that can compound over time and become important. And ultimately people either take like this 5-minute view of money where it's like, this is going to buy me a burger right now, or it's in 40 years that'll be $10,000. And I really think that's kind of a or C way of looking at it instead of like a B rationale where it's I think it's healthier and better for people to take shorter span looks at investments. So one example might be I guess just for my benefit, I'm not rolling around in money. I hope that's apparent by my the fact that I'm even talking about this kind of stuff, because people that are being well rewarded with money through all their work are often distracted by that and don't have time to think about stupid abstract concepts like I do. But I don't have a lot of money, but I decided to buy some old computers. They're pretty cheap, but it's like $200 for some old computers that I really want to play around with and learn some things that I don't know about, because there's a lot of operating system things that I'd like to learn and be better at. And $200 again right now, that that means kind of a lot in my financial scenario. I can't just piss away $200. If I did that a couple times, I'd be out on the street. But it also isn't something like I don't want to bury that $200 or buy gold with it and, hodl it for the rest of my life. But I took kind of this, 5-year view. Okay. I want to get better at learning, these certain skills on the computer. So, I need to take an actionable first step. The actionable first step is to, invest some money in there. And in a lot of ways it is investment in a skill in some ways, but, if you take the 100-year look at the $200 or the 5-minute look at the $200, my decision is wrong on both of those fronts, right? On both of those areas, it is wrong. But I think with this kind of middle ground area that I tend to try to view money as, it makes sense and it's good. And time will tell if it pays off, and I'll tell you if it pays off. And even if it doesn't, I'm gonna, I'll gaslight you telling you that it does. But either way, I just think that people tend to, think, 4 generations deep with their money, or like, yesterday, they go into debt for the thing. It just seems like there's got to be a middle ground, right? And people that, people can't find that for some reason. But anyway, I guess I'll wrap it up there for today. Hopefully it was interesting, enlightening, or something. Maybe I came off as especially anarchist or anti-technology. I don't want that to be the case. I'm very I'm very interested in trying to use technology, because I think there is a lot of potential for it, but it is being abused in a lot of ways that I think are problematic. And so I think it's nonetheless worth a discussion on different things. So anyway, hopefully I don't become corrupted before the next episode and forget about questioning these different things and talking about problems that are insignificant but significant as anything else is, as the work things that people find significant are equally insignificant. But anyway, thanks for watching. I will see you guys in the next one. Peace out.